Hey Tony, how are you today?
Great. How are you, Melissa?
I'm doing good. It's a nice day. Getting ready to just enjoy some outside time, I think later. How about you? Are you busy with coaching or are you done coaching?
No coaching right now. I've got another, I guess, 6-ish weeks
Oh,
before cross country season starts up. My daughter's basketball and sports things has wound down a little bit. So I feel like it's summertime. I've paddleboarded 3 days in a row, might make it four
oh,
today. So, uh, and
nice.
yeah, have some writing deadlines, some articles and stuff, but I actually just said no to an article, which I rarely do, but it was a combination of it just wasn't a topic I was super excited about, and just looking at the calendar and the sunshine, we have to soak up our sunny days here. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a good you've evolved then. That's
I mean,
important piece as a writer is evolving because I don't think you'd be saying no.
no, it's
Maybe.
hard. It's always been hard for me to say no about anything, and I've said no very rarely in the writing world.
Mhm. Yeah.
Even though I've been doing it for 6 years, I still, still feeling like, I wanna say yes to every opportunity.
Think that's kinda common. We always feel, like, on the razor edge, It's
Yeah, I
like,
know.
"Uh-oh."
Even when I'm busier than ever, writing more than ever, I always feel like, "All right, this is the last one."
Yeah, there's, like, a replaceability in in writing that doesn't always exist in other industries, which kinda brings us to our topic today. It's a little different, but we found an article, or you found an article, Tony, in Forbes, that is titled "Millennials Are Buying Blue-Collar Small Businesses to AI-Proof Their Future." And that's really interesting because that AI proofing topic is so huge right now. It's on a lot of people's minds. And for, I think, fair reason, we're seeing mass layoffs across the board. Microsoft, I think, just laid off 4,700 people last week. It was something around that, which I think was definitely coming, because they were doing volunteer retirements not long before that, but there's a lot in the news right now about it, a lot going on. So, I mean, I think it's important that we all think about AI proofing our future, and, with that said, a lot of the opportunities right now are around, like, AI-driven business, right? Technology business. So if you're looking for a job, you're going to see a lot of jobs that are with startups, right? Things like that. I think the tricky part and what this article is leading into is, you know, is there a lot of security in those jobs? Are those startups gonna last? Or if you're in a more traditional job, is AI going to take your job, right? So all of these things are looming for everyone. And so a way that millennials or certain millennials are dealing with that is they are looking at some local blue collar businesses that they can buy. And we've touched on this in a past episode as well. I know we talked about like quote unquote boring businesses. Um, but I think there's a lot more to say around this. And Tony, you have a lot of knowledge here because you're obviously in the construction world and you've owned a lot of small businesses.
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, most of my businesses have been, um more hands-on type businesses, even if, I haven't swung a hammer in a lot of years, but that was still the world I was in. But we had I had a screen printing business back in the day. Lindsay now has one of those again, has for a few years. Um, we owned hair salons, the construction companies, and I've just been in and around that world. And there is something to that, like, when you look at what AI is going to replace, AI doesn't have hands yet. And so the opposable thumb still is a very important part of actually physically building, doing, creating things. and yeah, I think we talked about baby boomers are selling their businesses, and we've talked about boring jobs. And I think just leaning into that, what's the AI proof aspect of this, of what industries, when you look at and say, okay, people need this in their life, uh, or else it's super important to them in their life, and it's really hard for AI to replace. And so, this brings up HVAC. Obviously, people don't want to be too cold and they don't want to be too hot. Um, I think plumbing, and I think I've mentioned that on this before, but people really, really, really want their plumbing to work. It's something that no matter what's going on in the economy, they will spend the money to have their plumbing to work. Same with electrical. But I was actually, Lindsay and I were talking about this the other day about, just like different career paths for kids now. And I think that it has changed over the last, 15 years, of where it was like you have to go to college, you go get that piece of paper, and then that's going to help you go get a job. Well, depending on what your college degree is in, maybe it helps you get a job, maybe it doesn't, but having an actual skill certainly does. And I was thinking about the hair industry specifically, since we had owned some hair salons, and I think it's going to be quite a while before people want robots cutting their hair. And, just
Yeah.
those physical touch jobs, massage therapists, probably physical therapy. There's these jobs that, yes, blue collar, like, construction is kind of an obvious one. But I think you could even go further for these AI proof jobs where that human connection is so important, both physically, from the ability to manipulate something, but also just what the humans are going to be comfortable with.
Mhm. Yeah, I think with more and more AI and machine driven technology, it's going to become people will become less and less connected. I know that's not necessarily the intent, but it is what happens, and then they crave that human connection. So, I could also see it, I feel like we are seeing it a bit now, and maybe some of that is coming from the pandemic as well, which is years past now, but I think still, like, we're getting back to, like, a sense of normalcy as well, post-pandemic, and I wonder if, like, some third spaces will be becoming more popular, so that, like, where is that hangout? Where is that human hangout going to be? What does that look like? Is it a coffee shop, a bookstore, a recreation center? Um, I don't know, but it's probably worth people looking into. Look at and booming. I don't know if it will always be booming, but right now, like, pickleball is booming, right? So, I mean, you can't AI pickleball. Like, you're there, you're in person, you're playing, mostly playing doubles. So you're playing with a partner and then two other people, and it's all happening on a public court or sometimes inside in a club. Um, but it's very, very popular, booming industry. I
I was
also
just
think oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just talking to my mom about this yesterday because my dad, who is coached by Melissa's husband, Gary, in pickleball, has a leg injury. And I go, "Oh, is that a pickleball injury?" And he was very defensive for pickleball. He goes, "Well, it's a repetitive use injury. So, yeah, maybe pickleball, but also biking and all the other things." And I didn't push, but my mom brought up just, how social it is, and she's not a pickleball player. She had a shoulder injury years back that kinda limits her ability to jump into that sport, but she did comment on just that social aspect of it, that th it I was like, "Well, maybe, it is an older demographic right now that's playing, that is the part of the boom with pickleball," and I was like, "Well, maybe they should have chose ping pong and there'd be less injuries or something." But, oh,
Well, it will cause I mean, I think isn't it already causing, like, more physical therapists to go into practice
oh, yeah, and I think it's probably
specifically?
great for orthopedic surgeons, and, but
Yes.
the whole point about it is, yeah, exactly what you're saying, is just like that. it is the social interaction as much or maybe even more than it is the game. And it's got a low barrier of entry to be able to play and have fun. It has a high level to be very skilled at it, and I think people do like that you can just like they can continue to grow in that game. But the barrier of entry for just getting on the court and having fun is pretty low, and so it's attracting a lot of people. So,
Yeah.
and I guess with that, with like what Gary does, that coaching, right? Like
Yeah.
these people that he's teaching these classes for, they could go on YouTube and learn endless amounts about pickleball, right? That information is
Mhm.
out there. I mean, actually, Gary has what is it, 1 minute pickleball
Drills. Yeah.
drills on Instagram, right? And so he's even putting content out there.
Mhm.
Maybe my dad's looked at that, maybe not. What he likes is going and taking the lesson and being there with his friends and with Gary and that.
Mhm.
So I think that coaching and so, this article was focusing very much on blue collar jobs, but I want to focus more on the AI proofing
Mhm.
aspect of it. And I think people can really get creative about looking at what their strength. And this is whether you're maybe just entering the workforce, whether you're just saying, okay, I'm going to go to college. What am I going to do? I'm scared. There's a lot of people are getting booed at college graduation speeches if they're part of the AI world. And or if AI is taking your job, or if you're just transitioning your life and you say, okay, what can I do that is AI proof? And
Mhm.
it's an interesting topic. And I think it's bigger than people think.
I was reading on Reddit, of course. Um, I don't remember what the subreddit was that I was in, but they were talking about layoffs. And it was a bunch of people who had recently gotten laid off in the tech world, so in the corporate tech world. And a lot of them were saying like I've never gone back. And one of the number one things that they did was pet sitting and dog walking. That was like they just started doing it on it seemed common for folks to just start doing it like on Rover as just extra money while they were unemployed, I guess, and kind of considering their next steps. And then that turned into, you just because that's again something that people are always going to pay for. You're not going to have AI watch your dog, let your dog go out to the bathroom, play. And it's also that emotional piece too. Obviously you want like your pets to be happy. So you want somebody who loves them just as much as you do to come and take care of them. So that is a booming industry and lots of I mean, always needs locally for that type of thing. So that's another thing. And get and to Gary's credit, he has also had that business. He did that for about 10 years. He had a pet sitting behaviorist work business. And it was very profitable. And it was for that exact reason. He would have, we would always say, it was like all the we'll put this in quotes like reject dogs and it was the ones that would get kicked out of the doggy daycares. And so we would get them and they were like the sweetest little peanuts, but it was just that like the folks that were at the daycare were not did not know how to work with that particular breed or temperament. And so we had all like a motley crew of like German shepherds, pit bulls, we have a Malinois, like just all these different ones were like hilarious, but everybody got along. It was all fine. Everybody
Yeah,
was chill.
I actually just rented a house to a woman who
Mhm.
that's her job. She every morning goes and picks up all these dogs,
Mhm.
takes them out to this place in the county.
Mhm.
They run around, have a great day, loads them back up and goes and drops them off. And seemingly just like a very successful business. She
Oh, yeah.
actually I think she had it down in Seattle before and relocated it up here and has successfully kept it going. Um every time people always say every single job's going to be replaced, no one's going to work anymore, we're going to be, everybody's going to have to get whatever it is when the government sends everybody a check.
Oh, yeah, like assistance or
Yeah, it's like
mhm.
there's a term for it, right? Elon Musk is saying that we're going to have to do that where everybody will just get X amount of dollars every month.
Mhm.
I always go back to like farriers, right? Farriers, working on making horseshoes and working on horse hooves used to be one of the biggest jobs in the world.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
There's not that many of them out there anymore. Now it's like this very superalized special thing because there's not that many horses, right? People aren't getting
Mm.
around by horse and buggy. They're not plowing their fields with horses. And I always think of we moved on from that and we moved forward from that. And so I think to AI proof your life, it's really an exercise in creativity and futurism, which I love
Mhm.
that word. I always thought that like got to be the best job ever because if you're wrong, like whatever, you're just guessing anyways. But the but to start a business or go buy a business that already exists that you say, all right, this thing is essentially AI proof. And it may not be technology proof forever, but it,
Mm.
it could be for a very, very long time, or maybe it is forever. Um, but to go seek out those types of businesses to buy, start, or just work at, I think now is a very good opportunity. If you look at AI as a threat, that's one way to look at it. But if you twist it and look at it as an opportunity of is there's going to be growth in other sectors,
Mhm.
well, get trained, whatever, and head towards that other sector, and you can be ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you said that's interesting about the horse hooves, did you say? Like, it's so then who Gary has brought that up before too. I think he was, needing to get, like, something like a leather shoe fixed. It was something like that,
Yeah.
and, he took it to a local person, and they were saying, like, it's I mean, they were quite, in there. I'm not sure how old, maybe he was guesstimating in the 70s or something, but they were saying, like, there was no one to take over, no one goes into that trade anymore. So that's also interesting is like what kinds of trades are out there where it's this highly specialized thing that people need. That's not going to go away. That still exists, but that no one is apprenticing in those types of things anymore. And so now what's going to happen? They're
Yeah.
just not going to exist.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, somebody will snatch up that opportunity, hopefully. And yeah, maybe there is growth in areas like that. And the other thing that the article brought up was just this person that made this transition. Um, they saw other benefits besides just being employed or having this business and making money. Their blood pressure dropped because they were moving more. Their back didn't hurt. They lost weight. They were happier, all these things. And so I think there is, and I was definitely one of these people that I'm like, okay, the future is staring at a computer screen. Like that's
Mhm.
when we were graduating high school, like that seemed to be where the opportunity was. And now sitting is, the new smoking or whatever, like as they say. And so there are these other benefits of doing a job that is maybe not only not replaceable, but also gives you other values, whether it's moving throughout the day
Mhm.
or, fixing someone's shoe. Like there's this actual interaction with the person and that person's going to be happy and you're going to see them walking down the street wearing that shoe. Uh, seeing someone get better at pickleball, getting
Mhm.
somebody's toilet unclogged, right? Like that person's going to be
Yeah.
stoked. So,
Oh, yeah. You'll be their favorite person.
um, so I think that there's a lot to this that people can explore and and I think we need to maybe get comfortable being a little more uncomfortable,
Mhm.
or in quotes uncomfortable because I mean, I can only sit at a desk for so long before my neck
Yeah.
hurts and whatever, and I have to get up and go move. But I think we've gotten comfortable being uncomfortable in different ways. We don't want to be cold, we don't want to be wet. We don't want our muscles to hurt from working. We don't want to be physically exhausted from doing physical labor. Where now like I would trade being physically exhausted from doing physical labor over being the mental exhaustion of staring at an Excel spreadsheet all day. And I mean, it took
Yes.
me decades to realize this. Um, but it's so I think there is, other benefits to this that it would be pretty ironic if AI, the way AI actually helped us is that we were all moving and interacting more,
Yeah.
and that it kind of forced that.
Mhm.
Uh,
I agree. It doesn't feel good to I was on a contract for a year that like I pretty much for 12, 14 hours a day was hunched over a laptop on in Zoom back to back meetings. And I felt so like the toll that that took on my health was insane. And I remember Gary even saying to me once, he's like, how about like when you're done working, just at the time we have a Peloton bike. He's like, why don't you just get on the bike and like just pedal? Like, don't even do a class, just so you're like doing something. And I'm like, I don't think you realize I'm so exhausted that like all I can muster is like to get myself from my chair to the floor or to the bed and just lay flat. And I would just zone out like, he would talk and I just couldn't even it was very, very bad. And, so I can't imagine that was only a year of my life. I can't imagine if that's, 20 years of your life, 30 years of your life. And it is interesting when I was reading about those folks that had gotten laid off and they weren't going into, like, dog walking and things. There was also, like, a huge pipeline of corporate to Costco. And I'm like, fascinating because apparently Costco is a really good employer. Now, I don't know. I've just heard really great things about maybe their benefits and their system of maybe helping you move through like and recognizing employees. This is what I heard. I'm sure it's not everyone's experience. But people were saying it's like they really loved like either you start out with monotonous activity, so you're just usually unpacking things, right? Like that's kind of how you start. And they loved it because it was like, I don't have to talk to anybody. I'm not in any meetings. I'm moving my body for 8 hours, and I'm just like, and it's just like routine and you're just like, you're just getting to relax. And I'm like, oh, I mean, not relax physically, but relax mentally in the sense that you don't have to be whatever, playing corporate politics, I guess. So I thought that was really fascinating. And then if you want to keep moving up, you can do cashier and work with people. You could do management work with people. And I thought that was also, while that's not a small business, I certainly don't see a Costco going anywhere. We still need to get groceries. So I don't think AI is going to replace Costco.
yeah. And so, yeah, I think this is a fun brainstorming session, right? So get together with your friends, family, whatever. And if you are a person that is worried about their job being replaced or trying to just figure out what you want to do, just have a brainstorming session. I think the list is really, really long
Mhm.
and potentially growing of how how you can do this. And you can follow the drip trickle flow flood method, and it doesn't have to be just one thing. We've talked about
Totally.
this a lot where there's doing a couple things where some of those things might be physically active, some of them might be more sedentary, and together you create this world that has some balance to it, both from an income standpoint and just from a life standpoint of moving and interacting and using your brain and body in different ways. Um and I think we did talk about this, right? But there are a lot of baby boomers that don't know what to do with their business. So have this brainstorming session, then go identify those businesses. And we talked about all the potential benefits of buying an existing business in a previous episode of having a market, known numbers, all of those things. And so, you can put all these pieces together as you're moving forward of saying, okay, we did this brainstorming session. We thought these would be fun areas to do. Go to your favorite people in your community doing those things. See what their plan is. Maybe you'll get a job. Maybe you'll end up with a business. Who knows? Uh, but you know what people love talking about? is themselves and their businesses. So if you go in to ask them about it, they're probably going to be stoked to talk to you about it.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great way to do it. I also think people can look to their personal interests too. I'm not a huge fan of turning every hobby into a business. I think that can be a slippery slope sometimes, but you might look at that, like if it's something you really like to do. For example, my husband Gary's in his sourdough era right now. He is
So is my daughter.
okay. Well, they'll need to link up
Just
because
this week.
he same here. Just it's only been a week long. He
No
has
way.
he's gone from making 1 loaf a day to I think yesterday he made like 5.
So
And
she's in the starter phase. She started from scratch.
Mhm.
Does his starter have a name?
No, so I've kept a starter going since like 2023. So
Oh my
I've
god.
been I do it, but I
Okay.
am a lazy sourdough maker. So
Okay.
most of the time I don't make bread and I just make a flatbread. I just do a discard like flatbread or something. Um So his one of his pickleball lessons, in fact, gave him a lesson in sourdough. So she gave him a starter, and like kind of, gave him all the tips and walked him through how to do it and everything. So we now have 2 starters, plus he just did a third one that he's starting. And yes, and he's baking. And so but now that that's happened, of course, every post that I get on TikTok is like a sourdough post because our TikTok listens. And so it's interesting though, because what I'm seeing is a ton of people who are like cottage bakers, right? So they get their cottage baking license, which varies state to state, and they bake in their home. And then they usually sell it at like a little farm stand in front of their house. Or maybe they sell it out to like other small businesses or something like that. But look, that's going to be tough physical work, but like that's rewarding for people like to like make something. And if like that's what you like to do, bake. I see lots of people with cake pop businesses, like all sorts of things where it brings them such joy to like, it's like, all I want to do is be in my kitchen. And then you do that, and then you can have this business, and then you're connecting with your clientele and like making the community happy with your delicious treats. So
Yeah,
that
Lindsay has bought some bread from that exact description of people. Um, I don't know if Harper, my daughter, will ever listen to this episode because she's almost 14 and I'm pretty uncool. But she would probably want me to say that her sourdough starter's name is Linda, and it's written right there on the jar. And so
maybe we
anyways,
need to name ours. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know about that. Okay.
yeah, apparently it's another pet. So
All right. I mean,
gotta
it's a living thing. That makes sense. It probably should have a name. But there are so many cool things I think that you can do. And again, doesn't mean you have to turn your hobby into a business necessarily, but we are drip, trickle, flow, flood here. So what if you just did something once a week, or made it a drip versus a flow? Or we can think about some past episodes too. Like we had Dusty on who was doing her right? It was just plant starters. That was like something that was fun for her and meaningful, and she was able to turn that into a flow. And we had our friends at Bean Water on recently, and they left their jobs and went and did something that they loved. And that doesn't mean that it's easier. They had lots of bumps in the road. It's a physical work, and making coffee and dealing with all the everything that goes along with that. But it seems like they're extremely fulfilled with their
Yeah,
choice.
even the grill cleaning with Bob,
Yeah.
right? That was meant to be a side hustle.
Yeah.
And so I think there is even when we go back to some early episodes, that a lot of these things have stemmed out of trying something,
Mhm.
and you just never know where something will go.
You never know. So, I mean, to kind of wrap that up, I think, like Tony said, having conversations with folks locally is a great place to start. Um, a brainstorming session is a great one to do. You could do that with like your family, friends, whatever feels fun for you. And think about your interests and hobbies. And like, is that something that maybe you'd want to test out a drip on? And then, again, low stakes. You don't have to move forward with it. It can just be a test. And then, but you never know. Maybe it can be something awesome. And if none of those things, go work at Costco or walk dogs. Any of those will work. But with that said, we will link the article for all of you to read, and we'd love to hear your feedback too. If there's any ideas that you're toying with or any questions that you have around this, we'd love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review on your favorite podcast platform. And we'll see you next time on Drip Trickle Flow Flood. Thanks, everybody.